Hey guys, Lisa Genovese here at BottomLine with another episode of Evolutionary Leaders. I'm here today with Phalan Grof, who's the president at Stoke Growth Inc. So welcome, Phalan.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to get the chance to chat with you. We get to do a lot of work together, but I often don't get to share all of the learnings from that work. And so I think
Mhm.
today that'll give people a bit of a peek into what it is that you guys do at Stoke Growth. And so let's start off with that. What is Stoke Growth? What do you guys do?
Yeah, so Stoke Growth, we are a coaching and consulting and training company. We work mostly with small businesses and high performance professionals. And so you'll see us working with kind of those working in the background, hard working individuals that look for a little bit of support. So a lot of what we do is we work with business owners who need that extra set of eyes, extra set of ears. We work a lot with leadership, management, and employee development, I'll call it. We solve a lot of problems, and we also have a whole side of our business which provides training and development for sales teams and leadership teams.
Fantastic. I always joke that you're what keeps me upright.
That's a really good way to put it. Yeah, we like to think of ourselves as we partner with the companies that we work with, and you're one of our small businesses that we love to support. And we're quite integrated, but we always have that phrase of like, it's your business, you're the boss. And we hope that you always feel that way, right?
Absolutely. No, that's
Yeah.
great. And I imagine this year, I mean, all years are hard, but I think this year you've probably had some fairly interesting conversations with entrepreneurs through the last 6 months.
Yeah, it's been intense.
Yes, intense is one way to put it for sure.
Yeah, I think everybody has their own version of what this last 6-7 months has been. And for us, it wasn't just going through this ourselves as business owners. We also went through it with our clients, and in some ways, like on behalf of our clients, processing what they're processing and seeing it. As we have clients all across North America, we've seen many versions of it.
Agreed. And I think too, there's been some interesting patterns, and I'd be curious to hear what you've seen on your side. I know for our leadership team, it was kind of that initial shock of things, and everybody went into this like survival mode of, we just need to keep going, we need to get through this.
Mm-hmm.
And then we kind of came down off of that, and I almost joked that it was COVID hangover, where people were kind of starting to relax and starting to settle in and accept that was their new reality. And then I've actually seen recently a new wave, I don't want to call it a new wave of panic, but almost a new wave of stress that's coming in, where people are anticipating what the fall is going to bring.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious if you've seen a similar pattern with other clients and
yeah, so what you're describing we call future casting, which is a completely non-technical term, but it's that idea of living in the future of what ifs, right? And that actually is a very, and just this is kind of, I just want to say this, and then I'm going to backtrack a little bit to something else you said, but that is a place where anxiety lives, and that is where a lot of us are living our lives right now. It's a really hard place to be. So when you were talking about you're talking about the cycle and the journey of COVID, and it's been like this, it's been a roller coaster. And I think that is one theme that I've seen. You could almost attribute it to, stages of stress or stages of grief. There's been a process that each person has gone on. And so the first thing that I'd love to share with you is that it's a good reminder to remember that not everybody entered the pandemic at the same state. And so in our programs, with our clients, as you know, we talk a lot about this stress curve that we developed. And basically, I mean, for anybody watching this and doesn't know what that is, it's pretty simple. I mean, the idea that as you're starting to learn something or implement something or step into something new, you start to emerge up and grow, and your stress levels are usually pretty low, maybe a little bit uncertain, but you're growing and it feels good. When you hit about like a level 3, you're like, I'm in flow. Things are working. 3, 4, things are moving, things are happening. It's like the ideal state of like running your business. When you hit up to this little curve, and I'm watching my finger on the video to make sure this is making sense. When you hit the top of the curve, you're starting to get into the high stress zone. So when you hit a 5, you're kind of on the edge and the brink of stress level that you can handle. And then as if something else comes up, something happens, you can go down to a 6, and then that's when you start to go down again. So we actually tracked this curve, and I will attribute this to Rich Grof, who is the founder of Rich Grof Performance Sales Coaching and Leadership Development. He's my business partner, also my father. We work together side by side every day. And, so it's actually his stress curve that he started to study working with high-end professionals to see this consistency in our success patterns. And so what I want to say about that is that we didn't all enter COVID, pandemic, shutdown, lockdown, at a nice, smooth, healthy 3 or 4 in the flow of things.
Right.
Some people, so I want you to think about this, I'm assuming a lot of business owners will watch this, some managers, that kind of thing. Some of yourselves as owners and managers might have been up at that 5 level. Some of you might have been on the brink of a 6. Some of you might have been on the brink of a 4. As business owners and leaders, we take a lot of stress on, and we're constantly dealing with change. So sometimes our resiliency is higher, but we can live up in that stress zone a lot longer sometimes. Our employees are a totally different thing. So you might have had some employees who were just started with the company, their stress levels were not there, they're pretty calm. Going into the pandemic was not a big thing, right?
Right.
Some people some employees, very different experience, right? So it's important to remember that not everybody entered this from the same place. And your job as leaders and managers nowadays is to actually expand what you thought you were doing as a leader to include a lot of the soft skills that will address where people are in that stress curve.
Absolutely. Well, and I know we've had a lot of conversations about what makes a good manager, and this very thing of being able to really coach your direct reports through a challenge or a tough time. Really, really key. It's no longer okay to just be a manager or be a dictator. You actually have to have some of those soft skills to lead your team forward. And it's one of the things that I appreciate so much about working with you guys is that it's not only helping me as a leader figure out what should be done, but also about where I can grow in the experience and be better for my team. And one of the things that in addition to the performance curve, I mean, we use that in our business quite often. Every Friday morning team meetings, everybody has to check in on. We just call it "What's your number?" But it's been such a great way for everyone to have kind of this common language to describe how they're feeling or what's going on for them, and also gives managers an early warning indicating system on if somebody needs some additional support, and then that coaching piece can come in. Two of the other tools, though, that you guys have helped us with, and I'd really like to talk about today, are how you're leveraging personality colors and Kolbe testing, because we use that in our hiring process, and it's very new for most applicants. They're like, what the heck is Kolbe, and why are you making us do these tests? And I have to explain that there's no right answer to these. So tell us a little more about that.
Yeah, so we use 2 different tools in our business. And I mean, many coaches use tools to help evaluate or find strengths or, different things. And these are just the tools that we use in the moment, I will say. So we use 2 different ones, especially for helping work with employees and employee performance and hiring. Specifically. So the first tool you referenced was the Colors Profile. The Colors Profile has been around for 100 years. It's been around a long time. And the Colors Profile gives us, the way that we use it is it gives us a snapshot of how people are going to communicate or what their preferences are on communication style. I always, I sit in on a lot of second interviews, as you know. I love to do that, and I love to debrief this Colors Profile with candidates because it's a useful tool in life, and so it helps take away the scary that we're over psychoanalyzing them. But what I love about it is that it gives us a snapshot of where they're going to default. And so what we've seen with the pandemic around is that people will default to their highest number in the Colors Profile. So a green personality, typically like a strong green, is going to be somebody who's like, bold, direct, not afraid to say what's on their mind, not attached to what's on their mind either, might come off a little harsh, and they don't apologize for it, right? So if somebody had quite a bit of green in their profile, if they're under stress, that number is going to show up. The green is going to show up, right? As the opposite of that would be the blue, which is that more emotionally connected, all about relationship, all about intuition. High blue, if they're in stress, you might get tears, right? And that's very normal and very accepted. So we are seeing the extreme sides of those personalities show up. The other tool that we use is the Kolbe Profile, Kolbe, for anybody who wants to Google it. It is not our profile by any means. It's something that we use. It was created by Kathy Kolbe, and they have a great website and many different versions of this profile that you can use. But we use the Kolbe A Index. And the way that we use the Kolbe A Index is actually to look at our natural energy styles. And so we call ourselves performance experts, human performance experts. And the Kolbe profile helps us understand the way that people are naturally wired to perform. And then what we do is we use that to kind of help the employer understand how to get the best out of that employee. And often what we find is that people come to us, new hires. So say Lisa hired somebody new, we start going through the Kolbe profile, and by the end of it, they're like, wow, this is so me. And the amount of times that I've been told, this is so validating. Oh my gosh, my last boss didn't want me to do it this way. And so I was struggling and I was exhausted all the time, or I hit burnout. We start to hear these stories of how managers and leaders wanted to fit their employees into their own mold. They wanted them to do it the way that they did it, because that's the way that they know to be successful, right? So the Kolbe profile goes against that, and it says, how can we use the employee to their natural strengths and get the most out of them that way? So it's a very freeing experience for the employee and for the leader to really have that insight on how people naturally work.
Absolutely. And I have found in our organization with using those tools, like colors, it really helps with communication styles and, people understanding, okay, that person may need more information than I do to make a decision, or that person is likely to react in this way if I approach it in this way. So it's helped from that perspective. And then, but the Kolbe has been so useful in making sure that we're not burning people out. We're not asking them to do something that's against the grain. And instead, we shift the way work is getting done. It doesn't necessarily mean, if there's a particular team member that, isn't high research, that they don't ever have to do research. It's just that we make sure that we're not stacking research tasks against, something else that may drain their batteries. And it's really helped, from a business owner standpoint, I can say it's really helped with low turnover, making sure that people are more productive and they're actually happy to come to work every day. That's really important to me. And yeah, a big takeaway for me is turnover is costly. So if you want to look at the bottom line side of things, there certainly is a bottom line aspect to using those tools. It's not just, I find a lot of people view them as nice to haves, or that's kind of the frou-frou side of hiring. And it's not at all. It costs you money when it's not going well.
Well, that's the truth. I mean, these profiles are very, very cost effective. But the truth is we use them every day. When we're talking about, if a company comes to us with an employee challenge, I don't know what's going on with this person. All of a sudden their production is not great. They're making errors. All of a sudden they're doing, there's always a story, right? And the owner is starting to problem solve and make up why that story is. One of the first things we can look at is, well, what have they been working on? Okay, and what's their Kolbe numbers again? And we usually have it on, on file, or most of my clients now have them memorized, which is really funny. When they're like, well, yeah, they're a 7334. Okay.
Well, I'm not quite that good.
You're not quite there yet. We have some of our longer term clients who just actually one of them that's just in the hiring process again, and just spouting off those numbers.
I love it.
Oh, it's like, yeah, I love it. I'm like, you're more into this than I am, but good for you. But it gives us, again, that starting point to look at, okay, what have they been working on? What type of energy does that task use? And this is absolutely why you're losing focus. You're getting in distraction, right? Yeah.
Well, and you're highlighting something really key here, is that I find too, without realizing it, a lot of business owners go to the negative side of they're not doing their job, or they must be messing around, or whatever the case may be, that the story they've made up in their head. And in reality, if we were to come back to more of what's the type of work, what's been going on in their, coupled with their work life, their personal life, and start to examine some of those things, usually there's a really clear picture as to why something's happening.
Yeah.
I mean, on average, most employees want to do a great job for the company that they work for. But it gets assumed that there's like a negative side to it. And oftentimes the answer comes down to the type of the work, or the way that employee is being required to do something.
It's frequent. I mean, we've been using this profile now for, I think, 5 years. And well, since that I've been using it, Rich was using it before me, but it's amazing to me actually how often and how quickly we can find those connections, right? Mm-hmm. There are times though, when you start to see, and I just want to, some of the business owners who are watching this are probably like, but they sometimes do this wrong. Yes. Sometimes, occasionally, if you'll see a performance behavior pattern that will show up, that once we address all the potential issues in personality, we do address all the potential issues with the Kolbe and how it's being used, then we can start to see that, well, this is a bad pattern of behavior. Somebody is hitting their success curve. We need to reprogram a little bit. And then there's also the role that the employee has in contributing to that. So they need to be coachable, right? I mean, absolutely. It's interesting, how many times business owners come to me and they say, they kind of have that sense of like, they need to know everything, right? And they need to have all the answers. But we forget that there's also an ownership and a responsibility that the employee has in this relationship. And if they're not willing to contribute and they're not willing to step in, that's, to me, when a relationship needs to end, right? I mean, that probably goes beyond work and employee and manager relationships. But, if they're not willing to contribute, then that's a clear sign that they're not a fit for your organization, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One thing that's coming up for me as I'm hearing our discussion is, how do these tools contribute to building culture within an organization?
Well, I want to see, and I kind of want to throw that back on you, because you use these tools every day. So, I've got my story on what it contributes, but what does it contribute to you guys?
Oh, so much. I think it certainly has fostered a culture of good communication. And when I say that, a lot of people are like, oh, every organization says they have good communication. Nice. Yeah. Sounds nice. But really, I feel like we give very direct feedback to one another. It's not just a manager giving feedback to somebody on their team. It goes both ways. I feel like that the way that things are communicated are often, like, everybody tries to do it in such a way that's respectful of what that other person's communication style is. So we're all mindful, I guess, of that we're not all the same, and we don't all need to be the same in order to work together well on a team. And so, yeah, good communication, I would say, is probably one of the biggest things. It's also, for us, fostered this, I don't know what to call it. It's like our team knows that we care about them, and they see that. And I've had this reported anonymously in surveys often, so I'm not just making this up.
Yeah,
that it gets reported often that the company actually cares about me as an individual, and that they want to see me succeed and grow in my career. They we have performance programs for professional development, and there's goal check-ins every 3 months with your manager, and those goals are set personally and professionally. It's sometimes it's as simple as, like, I had one gal on my team who wanted to learn to ride a bike, and so we supported her in doing that, giving her some company time to go do that because that was important to her. Another one that wanted to get back to baking for self-care. So really, I've had those two things probably are the biggest, most noticeable difference from a culture perspective, is the communication and them feeling as if they are individually cared about.
The word investment kept coming up when you were talking about that. Like, you are invested in these people, and them feeling fulfilled and accomplished in their role. And so that's the other thing I think that using these tools contributes to culture, is that giving people a sense of, I have ownership over my day. I have ownership in how I perform and the success that I achieve. Right?
Absolutely.
And there's nothing more powerful than autonomy. To be able to say, I know what I can produce on my own. And I also have clear language. And like you said, the communication side of it, I have clear language to go and ask for support when I need it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we have an open position right now that we've been interviewing for, and I forget sometimes how the way we approach things is very different than other organizations. And they almost seem shocked that even in that initial interview, when I ask, first off, I say, just take a deep breath. I don't bite. Like, I'm literally here just to get to know you as a person. And you can tell me about your past work history. I also hope you tell me about your family and what you do for fun. And they're like, almost seem puzzled at first that I even care. So it's an interesting shift. But I think, anyway, for us, it's really translated into a team that's been with us for a long time. And is really invested.
Can I give you a little plug? I think the thing that you do different, because a lot of companies use tools, right? They use assessments. Like I said, a lot of coaches and a lot of companies have these tools in their HR hiring process. The difference is that you guys live them. You live them every day. You implement them every day, right? Not everybody puts in that investment. And I think that's the big difference.
Well, thank you for saying that.
You're welcome. A little love moment there, hey?
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
So within your business, through these challenging times, and we talked about, the performance curve, we talked a little bit about leveraging Kolbe and colors. What do you think is on the horizon for this fall? Like, what are you seeing for some of your other clients on how this fall may go, and what that might mean for even 2021?
Well, you asked a little bit about themes, right? And so I'm starting to see some things kind of come down to earth a little bit on some of these themes. I'm calling it, like, the first one I'm thinking of is reintegration, and that's what I'm calling it. We're not, and I sometimes hate the language we're using around the pandemic because it is kind of pigeonholing people, but it's time to reintegrate into work. And there's a lot of our clients who are coming to us saying, I've got an employee who doesn't want to come back. They've been on government subsidies. They are living in fear, or they're living in stress, or sometimes there's really practical reasons why they're taking care of family members that they didn't have to before. I mean, there are real reasons and real emotion around reintegrating back into an office environment, whether that's virtual or physical, right? So there's a reintegration process, and the management and leadership of an organization has to have a bit of a plan and a vision on how they're going to address those fears and those concerns. Think about, here we are, it's the first day of school for many people. And you and I don't have school-age children, or in some cases children, but, we're watching the rest of society battle this out, and it's a battle, right? So there's a reintegration plan, the same thing that you're seeing with people talking about schools. They're feeling about coming back to the office. They're feeling about being invested in the organization again, right? So what does it mean as a leader to think about that and have a vision on how to address it, right? It's a big topic. It's a big thing to think about. And this is where we were talking about soft skills at the beginning, and like the soft skills that are needed. It's time for leaders to put their coach hat on, right? And help people navigate some of the emotion around it. So some of the biggest tools that you can use is transparency, creating an environment of transparency. And there's a lovely tool that we call clearing. I think you're familiar with this tool.
Very familiar.
Yeah, sometimes it's called clearing, sometimes it's called ventilation. where we give people a structured period of time to actually ventilate out the emotion that they're holding around a certain situation. That is a powerful coaching tool that could be used here when you're dealing with employees who are uncertain about coming back. Let them air it out, let them speak their fears, let them get it out of their system, and then look for, here's step 2, look for, in coaching language, we call it the dream behind the complaint.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what is the thing that they're yearning for? What's the thing they're desiring for? They need to feel some form of security. They need to feel some form of flexibility. What is the thing that they're yearning for behind their concerns? There's always something there.
Yeah.
Right? And then addressing it with them, right? You can be that outsider to say, I'm hearing you talk about X, but I'm thinking it sounds like Y. How does that resonate for you, Mr. Employee? Yeah. So it's about creating space for these conversations that typically as owners, we're like, well, we don't want to talk about the bad stuff, right? We just want them to come back and rah, rah, rah. It's all going to be good. We're going to hop into sales mode. We're going to save the business, right? But create a little bit of space before you do that to deal with some of the emotion around reintegration. And once you clear that out, it brings people back to the present, and then they can start being contributors again.
Love it.
Yeah.
Some excellent tips.
What are you noticing out there? Because you've got a massive business network. What are you hearing in regards to some of the themes around the fall?
Definitely a lot of similarities with what you're saying here around people not feeling comfortable coming back to work or wanting to come back. I'm also seeing a lot of fear creep up in this last week, especially from some of the larger companies. I'm seeing concern from a supply chain perspective, a concern from a resourcing perspective. Yeah. And I think that the common thread that I'm hearing is what's going to happen if a second wave hits.
Yes.
And I think that that's largely being fueled with this fear of the unknown and not sure. It's kind of that lack of control of what's going to happen. I mean, I am having similar thoughts and fears, but I think as leaders, we have to just accept that we can only control what we can control. And we have to move forward from this place of, I'm going to do my best and I will take it as it comes. There's nothing else that we can really do. And I'm also seeing it be really challenging for leaders when certain things are being asked of them and they just don't have the answers. And I fall into that category a lot where I'm being asked, well, what's next? And sometimes it's not easy to say, I don't know. But
that's a really hard truth. And I'm so glad you shared that because it's very real. Even for myself, we sat down with our admin who I hadn't seen in person in 6 months. And I said, I just want to remind you that this is the first pandemic I've ever led through. So, thanks for bearing with me, right? We're all in the same boat. There's no playbook on how and what and why, right? So when I think about that sense of control, and that's a really good word you use, because that is the thing that has been causing a lot of this anxiety is everything's out of control. I can't vision, I can't plan, I can't, the things that we're all told that we should be doing as good business owners are really hard to implement right now. Yeah. We get that, right? So what are the things that keep us in self-control first?
Ooh.
Right.
Such a good one. I think too, it's being able to recognize when you talk about the performance curve, being able to recognize when you as a leader are hitting a 5 or a 6, and not letting it get to that point. Not that I want to go frou here and talk all about self-care, but at the very least, making sure that we're being mindful of the fact of hey, I'm hitting a 5 today and I'm probably not going to show up the way I should for my team. Maybe I shouldn't have that meeting, or maybe I should reschedule X or Y. I know for myself, I've certainly had to self-manage through a lot of emotion. Yeah. There's just a lot going on, and being honest with your team to say, hey, I'm having a bad day today. I need to reschedule this meeting we have, or I need to take some time and come back to this. And I think the other big one is being okay with deferring a decision is another really big one. I have learned that art from you, Phalan, is that it's
My
okay.
secret weapon. Yeah.
Love it.
I think business owners have this ego around, I make decisions fast. Like we work with really fast-paced individuals, and we actually had one of our clients kind of remind us, it's like we're not speeding people up. We're typically trying to slow them down, like our clients, because they're high achievers, right?
Yeah.
Make decision, move on, solve problems, go, go, go. Like they thrive on that rush. I'm not going to say that's you, but I mean, lots of people thrive on that rush, right?
Yeah.
And so what I've been doing is getting my clients to slow down a little bit in their thought process and to kind of say, do I actually have enough information to make this decision?
Right.
And often the decisions that we're squirreling around, really, right? We're cycling and cycling and cycling of what about, what if, those are the decisions that we shouldn't be making right now. Because there's new information that's going to come, and this is going to sound fluffy. The universe is going to provide new information, and that actually happened recently for you guys, where we said, time out, we don't have enough information to make this decision, and within 2 business days, all of a sudden, new information showed up.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
We have to start listening a little bit to our patterns of decision making. Are we pushing to make a decision that we're not ready to make? And that is, I think, what we need to keep in mind for the fall, is that there was going to be change again. The world is in a constant emergent state of change. That is just true in reality. This is an amplified version of that, right? So if you can slow yourself down a little bit, bring yourself down on the curve, get yourself down maybe to like a 4.75 even, before you make that decision, you'll feel better about what you're doing. Like it's going to ground things out a little bit before you make that decision.
For sure. Definitely gives you different perspective and a clearer head.
Yeah. It's so hard as a business owner, I think, too, because you're used to having that plan of like, this is what this year is going to look like. This is what we're going to tackle, what we're going to take on. And right now we're more so looking closer in and saying, these are the problems I'm solving today.
Totally.
It's a big shift.
It is a big shift, especially for these, I fall in this category, but these type A people that, don't want to slow down, that they don't want to say, hey, I have to hit pause on this. I used to carry a tremendous amount of guilt when I needed to defer a decision. I felt bad that I wasn't giving my team the answer right now, and we weren't moving forward right now. And I've learned that sometimes if you make the decision right now when you don't have enough information, it costs you dearly on the backside of it. And so by just saying, you know what, I plan to make a decision on this by X time. And if you're not ready to make a decision at that time, just updating and saying, I actually don't have enough information yet. I'll be getting back to you in another week or whatever. And I thought that would really rattle my leadership team, and it hasn't. So I'm going to continue to use that skill of deferring decisions, because it's been a good one.
Well, because we're great problem solvers. This is typically who we are as business owners, right? Nobody who goes into it lightly saying, oh, I could just never make a decision and it'll be good, right? So it's really empowering. And I appreciate that you shared that kind of testimonial of like, what's the impact of that been on your team, right? I had the same thing. I had somebody come to me and they wanted me to commit to something, 2 months from now. And I just said, listen, not ready to commit to that. The world is going to change and I need to know what it's going to be before I commit, right?
Yeah. Which is fair. Totally.
It's
fair.
humbling and honest and transparent. And that builds trust within relationship, right? I have had a lot of feedback during like another theme of, some employees coming to us saying, I feel my concerns are dismissed. So they're above leaders, above managers, owners are dismissing, trying to control the environment within them, the office. So they're dismissing the fears. They're dismissing the concerns the employees have about COVID, school, being back in the office. Are we going to have enough clients, right? you cannot dismiss those fears. They are real, they're present, and they need to be addressed. And I will say, I don't expect all managers and owners and leaders to be coaches. I don't expect you to be a psychologist, right? But so hold space for your employees. And if they need additional support, I'm going to tell you right now, there are going to be some employees who need actual support to come back into an office environment.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't mean as a business owner that you have to take responsibility for that, but you can create space to have a conversation around it and then help them with resources.
Totally.
Right? Yeah.
Sometimes it's just listening.
Well, and there you go, coach skill number 1, right? Active listening is the most powerful tool that you have right now, is to listen and to hear and to listen to what's not being said. Yeah.
So true. So true. Well, this has been such a great discussion. I feel like we could carry on for forever and a day. But if people want to learn more about you or about Stoke Growth, where would they go to do that?
They'd go to stokegrowth.com. We also have our YouTube channel, and we have you can connect with us on LinkedIn as well. We're pretty present, not super active, but present there. So you can find us on there for sure.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for taking the time with me today.
Thank you, Lisa, for the opportunity. And thanks for sharing your insights with other business owners. It's really wonderful to see you model transparency and honesty around this really weird situation.
Thank you, Phalan.
All right, take care.
You too.